project, you need to take your pattern pieces, the pattern for the pillowcase fabric that is solid, and you will also need the fabric for the pillowcase trim that's smaller, out of your Ziploc bag that's in your drawer. Then take the pillowcase solid fabric piece and notice that it says fold along one end, and you'll have one side of your fabric that's open and the other side here you can see the fold edge right by Spike's nose. Then you're going to take this piece and put the fold along the edge. If your fabric is cut a little bit crooked, leave a little space at the end and line it up and make it sure that the fabric and the pattern are very smooth. Take your pins and pin the corners first. When you pin corners down, pin your pins at a diagonal direction and make sure that the head of the pin does not hang off the edge of the paper. That's important to remember on all of your pinning. Then after you've done the four corners, smooth it so that you have no gaps or wrinkles underneath. And again, check that the head of the pin doesn't go off the edge of the fabric. Then make sure that the fold line of the pattern paper matches the edge of the fold on the fabric. And then put in the fourth corner over here. And all of those pins are diagonal direction. Now you're going to take and put perpendicular pins in the midpoint. So taking your pin and keeping it perpendicular to the edge of the pattern, put the pin through the pattern, through the fabric, and then back up. And sometimes you need to lift it up and fold it like that. And basically put pins wherever you see a fold and pin on your fabric. And then once you have it pinned on and you're ready to start sewing, please call pattern check so that I can visually confirm that you're ready to cut it out. If you have it pinned on wrong, you can waste fabric. So we want to be careful to make sure that it's checked right before you start cutting. Once you have it pinned, and you don't need to put additional pins along the fold edge, then you can start cutting after I've checked it. If you are right-handed, please use right-handed shear. Please put the bottom blade of the shear on the table and slide the blade into the fabric, and it should also be perpendicular, the scissors perpendicular to the tabletop. Don't cut at an angle to the right or the left or you'll get an inaccurate measurement. So go ahead and with your left hand you can hold the extra fabric as you start cutting and take long strokes and cut all the way to the edge. Do not cut the paper. Aim to cut the fabric right beside the edge of the paper and cut all the way to the corner. And then slide it over, pull it close to you, and you can turn and keep on cutting. And again, with a right angle, just keep on keeping the scissors perpendicular, long strokes, and cut all the way to the end. If you are left-handed, there are shears for left-handed students in the teacher's desk drawer, and you can do this in the opposite direction, starting over on this side if you're cutting left-handed. Okay, we'll be cutting these scraps off before we fold up the fabric. This piece of fabric is big enough for another pillowcase, so you can fold it up and put it back in the 6th grade pillowcase fabric drawer. This piece is also wide enough to be used for cushions, so we'll save that scrap for later. If you have a piece of fabric like this trim piece here is less than 10 centimeters, that small piece of scrap fabric you can just throw away. But again, cut right next to the pattern and there you have your pillowcase cut out. At this point, you can take the pins off of the pattern and put them back in your pin cushion that's in your toolbox. and fold up the pattern piece and put it back inside the Ziploc bag that's in your drawer, making sure that you have your own pattern piece. The number here should match the number on the Ziploc bag. Once you have the pillowcase cut out, we're going to set this aside for a moment and cut out the trim fabric next. We need the trim pattern here, and I can see that it looks like somebody has already cut this same fabric here. So we're going to use this same fabric. So the fold here doesn't match here. So what I want to do is I want to change the fold on the fabric, and I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to make a new fold so that it is a little bit wider like that. And with a design on the fabric, be very careful to match up the stripes so that you don't fold it crooked. To use fabric in the best way possible, it's best if you put the, let's see, I think we'll put it right here in this space here. And in this case, it's okay to use the seam allowance because we'll be sewing that part under, or if it bothers you, you can also take it a little bit deeper and cut that part off, and that's what I think we'll do today. Okay, so I'm going to check and match that the fold edge now, the fold on the pattern matches the fold that I've just created here. I've changed it, and then as it comes down here, it should fit right in there. Okay, so then I'm going to put this piece right to the edge of where that was previously sewn. And again, I start with the corner pins and I put diagonal pins in the 4 corners, making sure that the head does not stick off so that we don't damage the shears when we cut. And put in the 4 pins. Okay, and again there's creases here, so I'm going to add 3 more pins, but the pins are going to go in perpendicular to the edge of the pattern piece, so they'll be inside the edge of the paper. And then before you start cutting, please call pattern check and ask me to visually check it before you start cutting. Okay, when you cut, again, you're going to do the same thing that you did with your pillowcase, and you're going to start on the right side of the pattern piece and just cut along the edge. And then you can also remove your pins from this pattern, store your pins back in your pin cushion. That's a safe place for pins, or a pin magnet, whichever. And then make sure to return your trim pattern piece back inside your Ziploc bag, matching the numbers, making sure you keep your own pattern in your own Ziploc bag. And then this is the piece of fabric that we will use for the trim with this pillowcase here.